Welcome everyone. My name is Katalin Kálai, representing Baj Zoltán Nonprofit Ltd. From Hungary. This is a training seminar, and I will share my presentation. I just would like to get a confirmation from my colleagues if it is visible now. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Cornel. So, welcome everyone on the webinar on the bio-based materials. This is the fourth webinar of the Power for Bio project. The first webinar was focused on biochemicals, then food and feed, bioenergy, and this is the last one in the row. And the aim of these webinars to give insight about the current status of the different bio-based materials at the European level. We will also talk, and our colleagues beforehand in the other webinars talked about the innovative practices and also funding opportunities and supporting policies. Today, we will have a shorter day. This is a 2-day seminar or webinar. This is the first day. It will be a shorter one. The Friday one is the longer one. We will start with my short introduction, and then our project coordinator, Ignacio Martin, will talk about a very important toolkit of the Power for Bio project. And then my colleague Cornel will talk about different projects, and we will have a success story presented by a company from Belgium, and the founder and the director of the company, Orinao, will be here or with us, and he's here already. So you heard about Power for Bio in the last 2 minutes in, I don't know, 10 times. So that's why I would like to introduce you the project. I'm sorry for my project partners who already heard this part several times, but I think it's good for the others hearing it. So Power for Bio is a European project financed by the Horizon 2020 program. It started in 1980, and it's unbelievable, but it will be ended very soon. We have 17 partners from 11 countries. And our dear coordinator from the Spanish institution, Circe, is with us today. The Power for Bio has a concept, and based on this concept, the project aims to empower the EU regions. So I would say the regional focus is very important in the project, and we have a special focus on the Central European countries. The project supports also policymakers in the transition to the bioeconomy era. We developed a catalog for business models and good practices, and as I mentioned, the regional and networking effect is very much highlighted in the project. For the regional effect, we have 10 participating regions in the project, 5 from the Western countries, and these countries had medium or very high bioeconomy maturity. And also we have 5 Central and Eastern European countries, including Hungary and the Southern Great Plains region, if I can mention it. And these Central European countries had low or medium bioeconomy maturity. The main activities and outputs of the project are establishing regional bioeconomy hubs. One of them will be presented just in 2 minutes, the Hungarian hub, of course. Also, we aimed and we did building bridges between the regions, not only national bridges, but cross-regional, cross-national cooperations were built. We had several training programs and cross-visiting, so the capacity building was very focused in the project, and we created very good materials and catalogs. I will show you where you can find them, and I would say the essence of the project is the Bioregional Strategy Accelerator Toolkit, the BSAT, which will be presented by Ignacio in 10 minutes. So this is the project in a nutshell. If you want to know more about the project, please visit our website or follow us in the social media channels. But as I mentioned, we had 17 partners, and I would like to introduce one partner, of course, my organization, because I'm selfish. The Hungarian partner, the Hungarian region, which is included in the project, the Southern Great Plain region, and it is represented by the Bioeconomy Nonprofit Ltd for Applied Research. We had several divisions in several parts of Hungary. And what is included in this project? The biotechnology division, of course. Our organization focuses on our organization has different specialties. We have different industrial focuses, and of course, as a research organization, we have several activities. The specialties of the biotechnology division are mainly the energy industry, environmental industry, agro industry, and food industry. And of course, bioeconomy is included in this specialty. And my colleagues are very active in the bioeconomy field. They are well known in the country and also in Europe. So when this opportunity came to participate in Power for Bio project, we were very pleased to be able to do that, because we know that the bioeconomy still has lots of hurdles in Hungary. For example, we have insufficient policies surrounding support. We don't have long-term vision. I mean, this is the Hungarian situation. In Hungary, the entrepreneurship is not so strong. There is a lack of financing and also difficulties in assessing the funding instrument. So there are lots of problems still in Hungary in the field of bioeconomy. So that's why we were very happy to somehow support the bioeconomy in Hungary and also in the Southern Great Plain region. I mentioned in the previous slide many problems, many focuses, but it means that one institution cannot solve all these problems. That's why we were thinking about a multi-actor approach, which includes businesses, decision-making, investments, education sphere, research institutions. So somehow we needed to build a strong cooperation with these institutions because the Hungarian bioeconomy can be successful only if these parts work closely together. And we think that the Bioeconomy Institute could be this link, this bridge between the different actors, the different stakeholders. But the Power for Bio project allows us to build a new participant in this picture, and this is the Hungarian Bioeconomy Cluster. The Hungarian Bioeconomy Cluster was established 1.5 years ago with the aim of strengthening and scaling up the bio-based sector in Hungary. We have different partners, different stakeholders, and we have several aims. I listed only parts of them here. But we believe that with the help of the Hungarian bioeconomy cluster, we will able to develop cooperation projects. We will support assessing the R&D potential. We can help the members to find money for their investment. So we think that the Hungarian bioeconomy cluster can really help for the Hungarian companies, Hungarian institutions in the field of bioeconomy. And as I mentioned, it is not a one-part game. We need supporters, we need other stakeholders, actors, and for example, we need the industry, we need the research and development sector, we need the policymakers, in our case the Ministry of Agriculture. Also, we are in close cooperation with the Hungarian Chamber of Agriculture. So together, this is the landscape of the Hungarian bioeconomy, and we would like to see ourselves in the middle as a bridging organization, and we are convinced that together we can enhance the Hungarian bioeconomy. We have aims as a first one to create a clear definition of bioeconomy, and also create some sector-specific messages. Also, we would like to create a supportive environment for the bioeconomy sector. We plan to identify good practices, and in the Power for Bio project we already did this. We also aim to identify resources and knowledge transfer channels. Thanks to the Power for Bio project, again, we worked on it quite intensively in the last years, and we would like to facilitate the effective cooperation within the sector. So with this small introduction, I would like to thank you for your attention on behalf of my colleagues as well. And I hope that you will learn something today and on Friday. And I forgot to mention at the beginning that we have the chat function. So if you have any questions, you can just put it on the chat, or you can raise your hand and we will try to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, please just let me know and I will try to answer. Thank you. No questions so far? Then thank you for your attention for this not so short introduction, but still an introduction. So I would like to ask my colleague, Cornel. No, sorry. I would like to ask Ignacio, our coordinator, to talk about the BSAT, which is a very nice result of the Power for Bio project. Ignacio, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me, Katalin?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, good morning. First of all, thank you very much to our colleagues from BioZoltan for inviting me and being able to present to all of you the toolkit as one of the results. There are many results, but today is quite fresh. Then I think is worth presenting it to all of you. And secondly, to congratulate them for organizing this session. Well, the agenda is extremely appealing, and definitely I see this as a very interesting event, not only today, but the 2 days to come as well. Then thank you for organizing that. Before starting, I would like to comment on what I'm about to show and to share with you. As coordinator of the project, my name is Ignacio Martin. I work for CIRCE Foundation, which is our research center. As mentioned briefly by Katalin, the POF-Bio is an European project, and we have the privilege of having among the partners 10 regions, which is quite unique, I would say. At least I'm not aware of any EU project accounting for so many regions participating at the same time. And that is part of the added value, in my view, of this special project, I would say. Because thanks to it, we have listened 10 regions from different geographical areas, from Central and Eastern European regions, but also from Western and Southern regions from the EU. And I think that was a very rich experience for everybody. Then, with no further delay, I will introduce to you one of the results of the project, which is the toolkit, as briefly mentioned by Katalin also. I will share my screen for guiding you through these results. Hopefully you can see it. Katalin, can you confirm that you see my screen? Yes, with no problems?
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Well, as I said several times already, this is not the only result, of course, of the project, but it's true that it's quite illustrative, as we have included in this toolkit most of the results from the project. And this means that everyone can get access to the information, and part of the information generated from the POF-Bio project. Of course, we have a web page where we have stored all the different deliverables. In this toolkit that I'm about to show you, you will be able to find some parts of the deliverables. What I mean by this is that we have extracted the most, I would say, easy to use documents and results from those deliverables for the sake of the user. Still, everything is available in the web page, right? There are different tools. That's why I highlight this before going into the toolkit demonstration. The web page is a repository of all the documents developed and all the work undertook in the project. And the toolkit is, as the name implies, is a toolkit which guides you through all the different resources we have made available for the users. Then, what is the toolkit for? The toolkit is meant to support any region at EU level to either develop a new bioeconomy strategy or to update an existing bioeconomy strategy. Then, in other words, this could be of interest to any region in Europe. Then, what we have done is we have developed a methodology to guide, to steer, to support the users in this pathway. Then, one important thing before moving into this is that, of course, the toolkit is free. Second, you don't need to provide the toolkit with any information. It is not an interactive tool. Again, you don't need to provide the system with any data. And last but not least, you can download everything that is stored here. Then you can use it later. You don't need to be connected to the toolkit to use it. You can download everything that is available on purpose. Then, as I said briefly, we aim at two different potential situations. Firstly, that you would like to develop a new bioeconomy strategy, or that you want to update an existing document in your region. Then, if I just, for the sake of time, I will dive into the toolkit to show you how to use it and the type of resources you will be able to get access to. Then if, for instance, I click into the pathway dealing with developing a new bioeconomy strategy, you find this stream which explains to you what are the different phases that have been described. In this case, 4 different phases for developing a new bioeconomy strategy. And in general terms, you see how this looks like. Those are the different phases that are part of the methodology. In each phase, you will go through different steps, and in each of those steps, you have resources. And what I mean by that resource is a tool or tools in plural that we encourage you to use to achieve the expected goals of each of those steps. One point, it is important to underline that you don't need to go through all the different steps. It is not mandatory to follow this workflow. You can go directly to whichever step you are more interested in. And last but not least, this is also important that every step and every phase is interlinked. I will explain you later how it is done. But in general terms, what we have done is I encourage personally and all the team to go through at least to understand the different phases and the different steps, because it has a logic, of course, and then it will really take you from the beginning of what we have understood as the analysis of the bioeconomy situation in your region to the very end of the process, which is to have a supported, agreed, and robust implementation plan of bioeconomy for your region. This is the layout of the 4 phases in case you would like to develop a new bioeconomy strategy. Then let's get started. If I go to phase 1, I will not go through all the text, of course. It is just an example of how to use it. In every single step, you have a general introduction of what we mean by this phase 1, for instance, assessment of regional bioeconomy potential and status quo. Another element to consider, which is who to involve in this phase, because it is also very important to mention. We don't consider that a single individual in a region is able to use all the information which is available in this toolkit. Bioeconomy is a complex topic, as you do know, and then we foresee that the user on behalf of a region would need to interact with several policy offices, industries, research and academia entities to go through all the steps that are indicated and suggested in the toolkit. Then if you go through and you scroll down, you can see the different steps, as you might remember from the previous layout. Then in each of the steps, you can see the different elements you can get access to and the different advices that we as Pole4 Bio suggest you to follow. Again, it is not mandatory to go through all the steps. You go to whichever part you consider is more appropriate in your case. But as said, I encourage you to go through at least the text to get familiar with the procedure and the methodology that is behind this software. For example, if you are in step 4, we suggest you to go through a SWOT analysis, and what we propose is, for instance, we have used these 7 indicators, a very big family of indicators, and then we have made available one resource. In this particular case, it is a template document for the software analysis. What does this mean? That you don't need to look for any SWOT template document to be used. Is the toolkit which provides it to you. And then you just click and you can get access to it, and you just open it and use it at your convenience. Then this is the procedure in all of the cases. As you will be able to see later, all the documents that are available are downloadable. And then you can store it and play with them, use them, etc., etc. In each of the phases, if you see, we are still in phase 1. There are different steps. In this phase 1, we have 4 different steps. and you can find out different resources available. For example, another element to highlight, if you go through to the complementary analysis with other existing tools, means that we have also within the pool of bio assessed the different existing resources. Of course, Pool for Bio is one project, but there are many others, and many other projects have produced fantastic results as well. And what we have done is to analyze the free and available resources that are on the web, and we have summarized and encouraged the users of this toolkit to use them. And last but not least, we have also explained why you should use them, for which purpose, who should use them. Those kind of elements could really facilitate you to identify and to recommend them to use to specific stakeholders in your region. Then you can see here you have access to a lot of different resources, not only produced by a pool of bio in this particular case, existing data sources which could complement your internal analysis in the region. Another element which is quite useful in my view is in each phase you see on top of the steps, if you scroll down, experiences from the pool for bio. One of the things that we have understood, at least myself, in the pool for bio project is that as a research center myself, it is important to develop tools for the policymakers. But the dialogue between policymakers is extremely important because it's not only someone, in principle, an expert in the field talking about how to proceed and how to implement good practices, but the policymakers to listen to their peers, to learn from experience from other regions presented by their colleagues in other regions. And this is part of the added value of the pool for bio. As I mentioned before, it is quite unique having 10 regions cooperating and exchanging experiences. And then this is a part which is in each of the phases devoted to practical experiences from the pool for bio project. Why? Because the pool for bio toolkit, the toolkit I'm showing to you today, it mirrors what we have done in the project. In other words, what we have done for the pool for bio regions is what we have integrated in a methodology in this toolkit. Then what we describe in all the steps, in all the phases, are the same phases and the same steps that the pool for bio regions have went through. This is very important. Everything that is included in this toolkit has been tested before by the 10 regions. The 10 regions have used in a different to a different degree, of course, the resources that are available in this toolkit. Sorry. For instance, in this particular case, talking about the SWOT analysis when characterizing the regional current status in the area of bioeconomy, we have made available one example, hopefully to inspire the users of this toolkit. Then, for instance, this is the final SWOT analysis by one region filled in to give you in a nutshell an idea of the kind of information we suggest you to collect and to include in this step of the whole methodology. If I move on towards other phases, the first one is the assessment of where you are in the bioeconomy field. The second one is dealt with how to build up a robust, stable, and sustainable governing structure in the area of bioeconomy, involving the key stakeholders for the development of the bioeconomy, but even to engage them for the future implementation phase of the bioeconomy strategy. because of course the bioeconomy strategy is a paper. What we need to do is to implement those goals, those policies, recommendations, and we need people. We need the key stakeholders to participate and co-participate in the implementation phase later on. As you see, we have also explained how to build up a governing structure, and we have made available, for instance, a guideline for the involvement of stakeholders. Again, you can download it and you can freely use it. Again, these documents are extracted from the documents we have produced in the pool for bio, and everything is available to be used at your convenience. Excuse me, yes. And again, in each phase, as I said in the previous case, the power experience could give you some hints when filling in and using the resources that are made available for that purpose. If you see, we have also included here experiences from the regions, how they have handled the information developed in the project, how far they have progressed in the definition of bioeconomy strategies, how they have used it, not only with some examples, but also with notes and some opinions from the regions. Then again, one of the things that it was very much highlighted by all the participants, we need, as a region authority, practical examples. Theory is nice, but I need to know how I could overcome practical hurdles. And this is the part where you can find those kind of practical experiences in the Pool for Bio experience. Again, because we are repeating, we are mirroring what we have done when working with the regions, and we have integrated those experiences in a methodology. If I move to the phase 3, which is to develop itself the bioeconomy strategy, we need to assess not only what we have done so far in phase 1 and phase 2, we need to think, we need to plan, we need to interact, and we need to technically evaluate where we want to go. As you might remember, I said at the very beginning that the phases and steps are interlinked. And this is what I meant. In the text, you can move forward and move backward if you want to come back to phase 1 and phase 2 or phase 4, etc., etc. Then the different screens are interactive. You can move back and forward again if you need to refresh your mind about something you read before. For example, in this phase 3, when analyzing what I want to do in my region in the bioeconomy, we have made available different resources also, and how to use them. In the implementation recommendations, just to highlight one point is, we have included some tips, easy to read, short. Hopefully they will also help you and inspire you in the process of analyzing the documents. And also what has been done so far in this phase 3, we insist on the fact that we recommend you to have accomplished a SWOT analysis, which is available in phase 1, to have built up a governing structure using or not the available resources we have made available in phase 2, and to co-create a vision, which is explained also in phase 2. Now we are in phase 3, and we have plenty of new resources. For example, in the Pool for Bio, we have extensively worked in analyzing the policies from the perspective of the bioeconomy, and also the financial instruments, which could boost the bioeconomy good practices. And then if I go to the available resources in the area of regional policies, you get access to a long list of different resources from the policies perspective, right? Then the policy overview of the bioeconomy. Again, you can download information for your further study. And this means a lot of information, and all the information that is available is updated, meaning that all the different documents have been produced in 2019 and 2020, then it's quite fresh. You can see different tips and political analysis that have been highlighted by the regions. Then those tips are hopefully of interest to you when thinking which policy measures I should implement in my region, but also other elements which could complement your way of thinking. Those tips come from the experience of the 10 regions. This is not only a desk research. Those tips are sentences collected when interacting with the regions, with the 10 regions of POF-Bio. It is practical experience. It is not theory. Of course, you can download a lot of information. For instance, in this case, we have selected 10 good policy examples at the EU level. Then you see what they are about in a table just to facilitate the understanding, but you can download the whole list in a separate document. Again, you don't need to be connected to go through all the elements. You see here you have an extensive description of the different cases that are included in this summary. Of course, with this, you just can spot one or two or as many as you want to later on download the whole document and go through deeply into it. We have also good policy examples. We have analyzed barriers and recommendations, etc., etc. If I go back to the previous page, which is, as you might remember, phase 3, and I go also to another research, which is the financial instruments, which was also instrumental analysis we have undertook in the POF-Bio. Again, financial tools are described, financial instruments are illustrated and summarized. Everything which could help you. For instance, when analyzing at the regional level where we are in the financial instruments area, you have here a questionnaire which could support you in collecting information in your region. Because, as I mentioned before, it is very important to work with colleagues from different entities. To team up is essential in the work of developing the bioeconomy strategy. These supporting documents to collect information could ease your work in this area. Example, tips, synergies, etc., etc. All those resources are integrated in the phase when it is time to go through them. That's why the methodology is explained in a way that we recommend step by step to go through all the different elements. And we provide the resources to go through all the steps. One key resource out of the POF-Bio also is, as briefly mentioned before, a catalog of biorefinery examples, which are running today in the EU. Then, for this, you have a lot of information in this area. I will go to the catalog, which is here. Of course, the catalog is linked and integrated in the toolkit that I'm presented, but we wanted to keep it aside from the toolkit also. Why? Because they are two different resources and we don't oblige anyone to go through the toolkit if this person only wants to identify bioeconomy solutions. Here is the catalog of produced by the POF-Bio, where you can search by the feedstock, product, technology, solution TRL, and the technology description. It is a vast number of cases, rather elaborated, then I do encourage you also to use this catalog. If you go through the catalog, you can become familiar with the feedstock of each case. You can go to the technology and the conditions that apply to each case, which are the products and the markets, and what are the environmental and the different elements which add value to this case. And last but not least, of course, you can download also in PDF the content of each of those cases characterized. You have also the guidelines explaining how to use it. Hopefully it is rather self-explicative, but just in case for questions or doubts, don't hesitate to go through the guidelines of how to use it. Again, these are two different available resources. The catalog is in an individual URL, as you can see, and the toolkit is in a separate URL. As you can see, it is still not public. What I'm doing today is to present it because we are changing the very last and minor changes. It's going to be finished by the end of the month, and from February on, it's going to be publicly launched for everybody. Back to the toolkit, there are also complementary information. What I mean by this is, in the definition of the methodology, we have thought, well, how to use the financial tools, because they are important, of course, how to use the regional policies which are applicable in the bioeconomy field. Of course, this is also very important, but how to merge different elements, how to take advantage of the different resources available. For example, we have created a Canvas model, which could also support you analyzing different elements at the same time. Then, as you can see, all the different documents are integrated in a way that we encourage you to use them in a particular moment along the process. Last but not least, before finishing, there are also other elements in my view which are extremely important, is how to monitor the progress. Because once you have the bioeconomy strategy in whichever form, of course, it is not a static document. It is not forever. It is a document which frames where we are and what we want to do. But we need to be flexible in view to the results in time. Then this is also an important part of the power of bio. We have integrated also in the toolkit few elements to support you in monitoring the progress. Then don't hesitate also to go through those elements which could support you in this task. Last but not least, I would like to encourage everyone to go through the different steps, because at the end, what we would like to see is that the regions use it for setting up something which is for everybody. What I mean by this is that by definition, this toolkit is designed to be used by policy advisors, policy makers. But definitely, we do assume that the bioeconomy strategy definition cannot be developed by only the public side of the picture. Then all the different resources are the ones we consider to be used, but not all of them will be used by policymakers. That's why we need to engage with industry, academia, RTOs, and any kind of stakeholder which could bring value to our work. And this is the spirit behind of this toolkit. We have not designed the toolkit only keeping in mind the policymakers. Of course, we assume that the main users would be at least centralizing the exercise by the public side, but definitely a lot of resources that are available in this toolkit are meant to be used by industry, RTO academia, etc. And we underline this need in the text along the different steps. From my side, I think that's all. Just to finalize by saying that, well, the functionalities are quite easy to use. As you can see here in the top right of the screen, you move from the different routes, two routes, as I said at the beginning, either a new bioeconomy or to update an existing bioeconomy strategy. And also, you also can have access from the very beginning to the available resources. Then again, as I said, you don't need to go through all the different phases, all the different steps. Here you can see all the available resources and you can download it directly. Of course, in my view, it's easier to understand why to use them when reading through the texts that are explained in the phases, but all the different resources are listed in this side of the screen to facilitate the process. That's all from my side. Just to conclude that this toolkit is going to be officially launched in a few days from now, and I encourage everyone to use it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ignacio, for this exhausting presentation. You have some questions in the chat. If you can open the chat, or do you want me to read those questions?
Yes.
I think the first one was answered. Yes.
Yes. As said, well, the toolkit is still under development. By 1st of February, is going to be officially launched. In any case, if you have doubts after this presentation, don't hesitate to drop me a line. And of course, I will be pleased to integrate whatever comments you might have. And from Javier Sanchez. No, we have not listed what is out there. What we have done is to explain where the 10 regions are, how they have progressed from the starting point of the project, and how they have done it. In other words, we started the project at the different maturity level, as explained briefly by Katalin. We have explained, well, different regions are in situation A, and at the end of the project, they have reached situation B, and how they have followed that path, and how they have used the resources we have developed for this purpose, with them and for them. Then, to answer your question, we have the status of the bioeconomy regional strategies in these 10 regions, because that was the purpose of the project, but we have not included the status of the regions at EU level. I don't see further questions. Katalin, if I miss any?
No, I don't think there are more questions in the chat. Maybe if someone wants to ask something from Ignacio, not on the chat, but in real words.
The catalog of bioeconomy solutions is very interesting indeed. I encourage you to go through it. It was a very nice exercise. It is quite fresh, and it contains a lot of information.
And it is already available on the Power for Bio website.
Yes, the catalog is fully available.
So thank you very much, Ignacio. I think there are no more questions. The next presenter will be Cornél Mátéfi, our colleague from the Bajzoltán Research Institute, and he will talk about biomaterial related projects. The floor is yours, Cornél.
Thank you, Katalin. I will try to share my screen, and my presentation. So I would like to get the feedback from Katalin, if it can be seen.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So hello everyone. My name is Kornel Matefi and I work for Bioregional non-profit Ltd, and also I'm involved in the activities of the Hungarian bioeconomy cluster. And thank you to join us today in our biomaterials related training. In the next few minutes, I would like to show you some projects, some examples, which has been funded by the Bio-Based Industries Joint Undertaking with the aim to develop new biomaterials in the EU markets. So first of all, just some information about the BBIGU. So the Bio-Based Industries Joint Undertaking is a public-private partnership between the European Union and the Bio-Based Industries Consortium. The European Union provided almost a billion euros by the Horizon 2020 program to this partnership, and the rest of the money came from the private sector presented by the Bio-Based Industries Consortium. And I think that it's a good indicator that these projects are actually investments for the future from the side of the private sector. BBIGU until today funded more than 100 projects involving around 1,000 beneficiaries from 37 EU member states and associated countries. And the goal of the BBIGU is to contribute to a more resource efficient, sustainable, low carbon or even carbon free European economy, as well as to increase the economic growth and employment in the European Union, particularly in the rural and coastal areas. To achieve this, BBIGU projects have three main focus areas. The first is the feedstock, so to foster a sustainable biomass supply in Europe that does not compete with the current food production, and to create new supply chains in the EU. The second one is to optimize the efficient processing through R&D and demonstrate the model's efficiency and economic viability by making demonstration actions and by creating flagship biorefineries. And the third one is to develop markets for bio-based products, mainly by optimizing policy frameworks to ease their market uptake, and also by raising the awareness of the consumers. So today I collected and selected some projects which has been already finished or are close to the end of the project, or at least have some products already. So the majority of these projects are linked to the packaging sector, but some of them are also interesting for automotive, construction sector, for the clothing and the cosmetic industry as well. So the first project I would like to mention is called Barbara project. this project ended at the end of October 2020. And the aim of this project was to develop a new bio-based materials with 3D printing. For 3D printing, as printing material, they used corn byproducts-based polysaccharides, which were modified with extracted bioactive compounds from pomegranate, broccoli, lemon, and almond shells. As the result of the project, they were able to make some prototypes of door handles and dashboard fascia for cars with specific colors, pregnancy surface effects, and antimicrobial capacities in collaboration with the research center of Fiat. And from the other side, they also made the molds for resin transfer molding and truss joint prototypes by suiting the strict thermal and mechanical requirements used in the construction sector. The next project is also linked to the automotive and construction sector. So because the lightweight and excellent mechanical properties of thermoset fiber reinforced composites, they are really attractive in these sectors, but they are challenging to reprocess and difficult to repair and recycle them. And this increases the overall material cost and the environment concerns. In addition, the vast majority of these existing polymer fibers used in the production are relying on fossil-derived materials, or they are using large amounts of energy at the production process. So the goal of this project was to develop bio-based, recyclable, reshapable, and repairable fiber reinforced composites for these sectors, which could lead to a sustainable and economically competitive fiber reinforced composites. They used two techniques. The first one was the pultrusion technique, and the second one was wet compression molding. And as a result, by the pultrusion technique, they were able to produce window profiles for the construction sector. And by wet compression molding, they were able to manufacture backrest for rear car seats. The next few projects will be linked to the packaging sector. The first one is the Celluvis project. The goal of this project is to develop two processes able to produce an all cellulose packaging material that can offer a competitive alternative to currently existing multi-layers plastic materials, while being renewable, recyclable in the paper waste value chain, and to be biodegradable. They used two techniques for this. The first one is the microfiber cellulose wet laminating process, and the second one is a chromatographic coating and grafting process. And to prove these techniques, they want to produce three types of products: clamshells, cups, and trays for the food industry. To prove the concept, they will also make life cycle assessment and life cycle costing analysis with the relevant data. And although there are almost 2 more years until the end of this project, they already have some promising results. And on the picture we can see the clamshell prototype. The next one is the Sherpak project. The goal of this project is similar: to develop a renewable, biodegradable and recyclable flexible paper-based packaging material that can be converted by heat sealing and folding with improved stiffness and grip. And it can replace materials currently used to manufacture form-fill seal packaging, such as plastics or aluminum foil. And they want to replace these materials with advanced biomaterial. And besides all the other outcomes, the layers of this packaging were patented, so actually they probably will be used even after the project. The next project is BioSmart project. Has a similar goal to develop smart bio-based and compostable packages to meet the needs of the fresh and pre-treated food applications. And this project will end at the end of this year, but they already showcased 100% biodegradable and compostable polylactic acid trays reinforced with modified clay. The next project I would like to introduce you called Pulp Action, and they developed cellulose-based packaging to reduce the dependence on non-renewable fossil fuel-based plastics. They also used wet molding techniques and made these trays from wood pulp. And they added different type of biopolymers to wood pulp in order to tailor the final properties of the product. The next project is an interesting one. It has a similar goal to develop an innovative and cellulose-based alternative to existing fossil-based plastics trays. And they actually deliver the full value chain. And they were able to make a 100% bio-based and biodegradable alternative. And actually, I found some data about the afterlife of the project, and it's really interesting because they actually made new local jobs in Northern Ireland, and also one of the Italian ready meal swap shops changed their plastic packaging to the bio-based ones developed by this fresh project, and thereby in the last year they so 9 million plastic packaging products has been replaced with these bio-based packaging materials. And yeah, I think that it's super to see that it's a good example how this project should have an afterlife after the project period by creating jobs and by going out to the actual market, and also have already have some effects on the environment. They also won last year the Novas Institute's Bio-Based Material of the Year award. So the next project is actually from the textile industry. The project called NeoCell, and the goal was to develop an innovative and techno-economically feasible process to produce high-quality textile fibers. And they hope that it could enhance the use of cellulose from sustainable sources, with a special focus on the textile industry, to reduce the environmental impact and occupational health issues relating to man-made cellulose fiber production, and to promote sustainable produced high-quality fibers for the textile and fashion industries. So the fibers produced in the lab were on the same quality or had higher quality relative to current use viscose products. Pilot scale experiments and simulations show that European production is economically viable if the process is integrated with an existing pulp mill. And finally, they made a life cycle analysis, which showed that the concept can achieve a 15 to 50% lower environmental impact than the commercial used viscose production. The last project I would like to show today called Polybioskin project. Its aim was to broaden the use of biopolymers in the demanding skin contact application by developing skin contact biopolymer-based products with increased performance and functionality derived from biomass and food waste, and to provide a more environmentally friendly product. They wanted to reach biodegradability, so allowing organic recycling. To reach these goals, they actively participated on the development of fully biodegradable nappy, and they made product parts with skin compatible surface and a biopolymer based superabsorbent, enriched with antimicrobial and antioxidant functionalities to prevent skin reddening and inflammation. The second product was biodegradable and bioactive facial beauty masks based on biopolymers in the form of a film or a non-woven tissue impregnated with formulation based on natural compounds. And the third product part was nanostructured biocompatible non-woven tissue for use of wound dressings. So this project was the 9 that as I wanted to show you today, but actually there are other projects which are still young or in progress, and you can see some examples on the slide. Almost half of them are focusing on the packaging sector, but there are also projects which would like to create value from bio-waste streams or urban waste streams, or even from post-consumer absorbent hygiene products waste. So I hope that with this example I was able to give a main picture about the current European situation of biomaterials related R&D fields and topics. And thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, then feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kornél, with this for this very nice collection of projects. It was really interesting, I think. I don't see any questions in the chat. Maybe if someone wants to ask something from Cornell, just go ahead. Okay. If there are no questions, thank you very much, Cornell, again. And we have seen several projects, but now we will see really working experience. Belgian company, Orino, and their products will be presented by Philip. Philip, are you here?
Yes, do you hear me?
Great, so the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present a little bit what we're doing. Just a brief few words about the company Orino. It's a small Belgian company. Was created some years ago, one of the co-founders, and we are active in development of bio-based materials. So now comes for me the most challenging thing is try to share my screen. And can you confirm that it works?
Yes, it works. We can see the presentation, although not in the presentation mode yet.
Yep.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's a big relief already. So yeah, well, I'd like to explain a little bit what we do and how we did it with Orino in this well, new challenging development of making bio-based materials. And the first thing I'd like to share with you is, although we are a small company, we are not afraid of taking up the challenges, and we are convinced that even small companies can have a big role. And if you don't believe that, just think about this one. It's a well-known quote. The origin goes back in the history of time, and a lot of people have claimed to be the originator of the quote. But I take it as one of my inspirations from today on. So even small companies, even small actions can have long-term big impacts. And just take that with you as a motivation to start doing things in whatever sector you want. You can make a change. So, what does Orino stand for? Yeah, of course, bioeconomy. We are active in that, but we'd like to go a little bit further than just develop things based on renewable resources. And it translates a little bit in our vision. So where do we think that, well, what would be the ideal world in our perspective? It will be a world where the resources, whatever they be, will never be exhausted, and that we also can guarantee a good quality of life for future generations. Quality of life, both physical, so a healthy environment, and mentally, so just whatever preservation of natural environment, biodiversity, the possibility to express yourself, and that's all included in this kind of vision that we have. The values that we want to preserve in whatever we do, so our DNA, let's say, words like bio-based are very critical for us, of course, but even more critical, harmless and authentic. Authentic in the meaning of what we tell is real, it's true. So no greenwashing, things like that. Harmless in the sense that we don't want to leave whatever toxic or hazardous residue in what we do, and even being bio-based can be toxic or hazardous for the environment or for health of people. We don't want to do that. And our mission, well, 4 items there. Obviously, we want to make something new. That I think it's quite obvious. We don't want, as a small company, do things that other people have done already. So we want to innovate. As I said, we have no compromise on health and environmental hazards in what we do. So that is a no-go, definitely. We develop the products, but we want to validate them and promote the use and the promotion of the products in the market. And then we have a kind of when waste becomes design program, and I will come back to that a little bit later in the slides. So the products, we have 2 products. One is Oribond, that's a thermosetting binder, and the other one is a material that is containing Oribond, that's Touch of Nature. It's an aesthetic material. Just to give you an idea, both products are 100% derived from bio-based resources. Oribond is, let's say, rough figures like 65% derived from non-food crops, well, essentially non-food crops. 25% is derived from side streams, so valorization of side streams, and 10 remaining % are based from, let's say, primary natural feedstock, so bio-based feedstock. And in Touch of Nature, it's even 35%, which comes from side streams. So it's even a higher side stream incorporation in the whole design. Oribond, as I said, it's a 100% bio-based thermosetting resin. It's a 2-component system, so both the resin and the hardener, so there are 2 liquids, and when you combine with them, they are reacting together to a solid material. Both components are fully derived from renewable resources. It's pretty unique. You find a lot of thermosets on the market, at least a lot of developments, which are partially bio-based. Our solution is 100% bio-based, and it's commercially available. It's also protected by patents. And you may ask, why do we choose for thermosetting resins, while most of the bio-based materials that you find currently in the market are more in the thermoplastic region? And we saw some examples in the previous presentation of that. Well, the advantage for a small company of working with thermosets, first, it's more like free ground. In the thermoplastic, bio-based thermoplastic, it's getting quite crowded nowadays. So you have a lot of companies active in that. But in the thermosetting region, well, there is still some place to take. So that's good for a small company. Secondly, regarding the processing, it doesn't require a lot of sophisticated equipment. So we don't need a huge investment, a capital investment in machinery equipment to develop thermosetting materials. It's more like a mixing system that you need. So that's a second advantage for us. The third one, as I said, we are quite sensitive to health issues and safe materials. And well, you will see in thermosetting resins, this is one of the concerns. So quite a lot of thermosetting resins have health and safety issues. And the last argument for us is that thermosetting resins are quite often used in durable materials. So materials that can be used for several years and not the single-use type of material. And we are more interested in our vision to sustainability and efficient resource use in developing durable materials. So on one hand, we have the resin, which is derived from epoxidized linseed oil. That's a completely harmless. It in theory could be food grade product even. And the hardener is a mixture. It's a eutectic mixture. That means that it has a special effect, that it's a mixture containing solids and liquids, and the melting point is lower than the single components. And when you combine both of them, you have a solid material, and difficult to see here, but the sheet underneath the two bottles is the pure resin that has been cured. And we can use it for quite a lot of applications where thermal setting resins are currently used. So we can use it as a binder for making wood panels, to agglomerate cork, to agglomerate rubber granules. We can use it to impregnate paper and make high pressure laminates. We can use it in composites, in coatings. For instance, the inner coating of metal packaging can be done with Oribond. And we also can use it in our other material, Touch of Nature, which has applications in furniture and in flooring. So basically it can be quite versatile in its application. Depending on the type of the formulation of the hardener, we can also modulate the properties of the resin. And then we come to Touch of Nature. That's the when waste becomes design concept. It's a plant-based material, as I said, of course. Quite substantial amount of food and agro waste included in it. As I said, around something like 35%. It's focused on durable applications, so not single-use materials, and we are aiming for an aesthetic finishing with Touch of Nature. This aspect of authenticity is also very important. When we speak about aesthetic finishing, that means that the aesthetics that you will get are fully derived from the 35% of agro waste that we are incorporating in the formulation. So it's the real design, color, texture of the natural feedstock that you will see in the product. So it looks natural, but it also needs to be nice looking. And let's say agro waste or incorporated can go from coffee grounds, pressed cake, from raspberries, cranberries, coconut hulls, leaves. So you just name it, we can probably process it into Touch of Nature. We combine it with Oribond and it solidifies into this kind of sheets that can be laminated or directly poured on a substrate. And as I said, it's also IP protected. Both the technology and the concept is branded by us. Some examples of things that have been done with Touch of Nature. So we are looking for the continuous production. We have some COVID issues to start this industrial production for the moment, but it's basically technically mature enough to do. So we can produce sheets of 1.5 meters in length of, let's say, 3 meters. And that can be laminated on different substrates to cover furniture. And see some examples of design tables that have been made with Touch of Nature finishing, or chair seat. And we can use it as a flooring element, so making tiles, so different possible applications. And by the way, referring to the previous presentation, this Touch of Nature has been awarded also as Bio-Based Material of the Year in 2016 by Nova Institute at the very origin of the material. So we say that we want to have an impact. Well, how do we see the impact that we can have as a small company with what we are doing? First, On preserving resources. As I said, important part of our vision. Of course, we do that by being active in the bio-based economy, so using renewable resources, but also aspects of circular economy are essential in our thinking and what we do. So valorizing agro waste, and also I prefer to speak about rebirth of the material instead of end of life, because end of life is, well, has something non-circular to me. Rebirth has something more circular. So I choose to use that word for what we do with the material at the end of its economic use. The products, as I explained, binary materials. So we impact with the creation of those products that we validate on a pilot scale, making prototypes together with key customers. I call it also demystification. That means the communication around the material has to be quite authentic, and that is both on the rational properties. So that means what you can measure, the strength, the hardness, the whatever anti-slip properties, whatever rational measure you can have on the material. But also the ethical and emotional communication around our material has to be very clear and completely open and transparent. And finally, on quality of life, our material are harmless to the health of people working in the production process, people using the material, so the consumers, and also in the environment. It doesn't leave toxic or harmful residues. And well, if you look at mega trends impacting our activities, everybody has heard about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Without being too creative, I can take 7 of the 17s on which we are really active and that we are, let's say, impacting in some way. The same goes for the European Green Deal. There we have at least 3 of the goals which are affected by our activities. And if we go then more to consumers, megatrend analysis by Euromonitor identified 5 drivers. 2 of them are related to our activities. And then you have a list of megatrends, and I identify 6 of them which are also impacting our activities. So all in all, what we are doing is supported by both international as consumer organizations. So we believe that we are on the right track. And if we look at circularity, well, basically we say that we are just borrowing carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen from nature. Borrowing means that we use it for some time and we give it back. And that's also the definition of circularity to me. I give the example for Oribond. So it starts with the crops and crop waste, as said. So the solar energy, water and CO2 as the base for photosynthesis and the development of biomass. That's where it starts. Out of those crops, we get oil and other ingredients that we need to make Oribond. And we, of course, need some energy to do that as well. And that gives us component A and B of Oribond. This component A and B, together with some extra plant-based ingredients, are used to make materials like particle board, MDF, high-pressure laminates, whatever material can be made of that. So then it goes to the professional client and ultimately to the consumer. So that's the normal linear cycle so far. So the first loops are coming here. I call this the extension of life, basically. So we can recycle our material to make some new things. but we can also repair the material if needed. So we can do different actions to extend the designed lifetime of the material. That's a first circular activity. But sooner or later, the material cannot be recycled anymore. It's really at the end of the possibilities. And then we come to the rebirth process, and either it can be incinerated and then it goes back to CO2 and energy. And remember, we need some energy in the process, or by grinding, we can mix it in the soil and we have a kind of organic enrichment of the ground, which can be profitable for plants, but of course, it also degrades, so it gives also CO2 that is also needed for the plants. And that's how the whole loop is completely closed in Oribond. Well, I went to the Power4Bio website and I found something quite interesting on calculating the greenhouse gas emissions and the impact of going from fossil to bio-based. And I borrowed the tank to wheel CO2 emission concept that came into the Power4Bio. And based on that, I made a calculation for fossil thermosets replaced by Oribond. And I come to, depending on the type of thermoset that we are replacing, so epoxies or phenolics or whatever, something like 2.5 tons of CO2 will be saved when we substitute a ton of thermoset, fossil thermoset by Oribond, which is not too bad, I guess. And then there is another effect on carbon cycle. Our feedstock are annual plants. So every year, CO2 is taken out of the atmosphere, fixed into biomass that we can use to make our materials. And our material have a design lifetime of, let's say, 10, 20 years. So we are actually think about this ratio, about the design product service life to the renewal rate of the feedstock as well, 20 to 1. If you take it for fossil feedstock, you will have also 20 years of design product service life, but 1,000,000 years for the renewal rate, so a completely different ratio. If you take it for the single-use plastics, bioplastics, you probably have a design product service life of 1 year or less, and also the renewable rate of 1. So here we have a clear balance in favor of storage of carbon into materials. Another aspect of our sustainable development, all the feedstocks we are using are coming from Europe. The green dot is Orineo. The blue dot is the primary feedstock, let's say, like flax seeds that is processed in UK, Spain into epoxidized linseed oil, and the other red dots are other supplies that we need to make Oribond or to make Touch of Nature. This is a quite interesting slide. You have different conventional fossil-based or even partially natural thermosetting resins, urine formaldehyde, formal formaldehyde, melamine formaldehyde, polyesters, polyurethanes, epoxies. And in the first column, you see some key components used to make those resins. And then you have the labeling of those components. And I fully agree that once cured, let's say a polyester resin, unsaturated polyester resin, once cured is maybe not that dangerous for the people living with it, but you still have residual monomers, that's one thing, and you still have a lot of people involved in the production process and let's say exposed to non-cured components of those resins. And you see especially the logos like this exploding heart, skull and bones, and the dead fish are the things that we want to avoid. And all the current thermosetting resins have, to some extent, one of those logos, and this is the labeling of Oribond. Basically, it will be more or less the same labeling if we would use Coca-Cola in industrial applications. And as I said, also the looks have to be authentic. So I just gave you some example. We use cranberries in certain materials for aesthetics, and there you see on the left side a whole kitchen top made with cranberries, cork, and you see a cork floor, coffee grounds. You see a tabletop made with coffee, and another floor made with olive leaves. So the aesthetics of the material are really easily traced back to the original feedstock. So, and that more or less is ending my presentation. And well, I just thank you for your attention, and that's it so far for me.
Thank you very much, Philip. It was very inspiring. I love the way you think, the theory behind your business. It's very appealing one. And also I like the Oribond loop very much.
Thank you.
I would like to ask the participants if you have any questions. There were no questions in the chat, but maybe someone is brave enough to pose question.
Can I ask something?
Of course. Hi, Orest.
Thanks a lot for your presentation, and finally I would like to say I would like to share your vision, but I would like to ask you what about the cost of your products? What about competitiveness of your products? Who are your customers, especially if you are talking about wooden board material products? I mean particle boards, medium density fiber boards, and something like this. And maybe finally, regarding some difficulties, if you're talking about technological process, when you will be able to substitute formaldehyde-based materials. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yeah, well, of course, cost is always something that comes into the picture. I will say it straight. If you think, if we would have the ambition to substitute in a cost-effective way urea formaldehyde, well, just forget it. That's so cheap. There is almost nothing. Even starch, which is in volume-wise one of the most bulky products you can find, bio-based products, is more expensive even than urea formaldehyde. So just forget cost matching for urea formaldehyde. On the other hand, if you look at epoxy resins, conventional epoxy resins, and again, please take into account the cost of the resin and the hardener, because quite often you see the price of the epoxy resin is so much, but you forget that you have to add some hardener in substantial amounts. And if you take the cost of the whole system, we aim to be cheaper than epoxy resins. We will be more or less in line with polyurethane resins, and we can be competitive with, let's say, for instance, phenolic resins, because also in quite some applications, the way to use Oribond is different than the way you use some of the other resins, but it can be simpler, and we can save on the processing at the customer's place. So wood panels indeed is a very challenging one, but we find for the moment some well, we have some developments ongoing with smaller organizations that wants to make well, call it wood panels, but it's not derived from just tree material, but from other agro waste that we agglomerate to a structural panel, and that's more in the niche sector, and they can afford to have a higher price for the resin, providing that they have some environmental and health benefits linked to that. So it's just a matter of finding the right partners, but in quite some applications, cost is not a problem and even can become an argument for us. It's also quite unique in the bio-based world. Been there for 30 years, and most of the time it's more expensive. We had some applications in European projects where we were sanctioned because we said that our product would be cost competitive, and they said, no, it's impossible. But, well, it's a fact. I hope it answered more or less your question.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Maybe some other questions? If not, thank you very much, Philip, for this very inspiring presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for joining us today. There was a question about the presentations, if they will be available. We will have the recordings available on the Power for Bio website. You will be informed when they will be ready. Thank you for the presenters for keeping the time. So we are really in time. We are according to the schedule. So if there are no questions, thank you for your participation. And I hope we will see all of you again on Friday. We will start in the same time at 9:30. So thank you very much and goodbye. Have a nice day.